I began experiencing vivid dreams of a brutal alien war. At first, I believed it was stress-induced PTSD from my high-pressure job. But when I started recognizing people, speaking in unknown languages, and showing skills I never learned, I uncovered a buried truth. I may be a sleeper vessel for an alien memory archive, one tied to a war not yet fought, and a species that no longer exists. Full audiobook. I haven't really slept in, 6 nights? 7? Not properly, anyway. I lay down, I close my eyes, I get the stillness part right. Body goes heavy, room fades, the sound of the scrubbers blending into that perfect hum like background radiation. But it's like, there's a line I don't cross, like the second my brain starts drifting off that last ledge into real sleep, I snap back. Sometimes I feel like I've been dreaming before I fall asleep. I don't mean nightmares. I'm not waking up sweating or screaming or punching walls. It's not like that. There's no monster, no shadow thing in the corner, no childhood trauma doing a dress rehearsal in my head. It's quieter than that. It's familiar. That's the word that messes me up, because these dreams, if I can even call them dreams, they aren't mine. They're vivid, not cinematic like the ones you wake up from and go, wow, that was wild, but sharp, real feeling in that boring, mundane kind of way. A cracked stone path beneath my feet, the smell of dry metal in the air, a sky that bends upward instead of out. I don't know how else to explain it except, it feels like remembering someone else's Tuesday, not dramatic, just weirdly grounded, like someone handing me a tool I don't recognize but I know how to use, standing in a hallway that curves like a ribcage, thinking about the war. What war? Sitting alone under an ultraviolet sun, humming a tune I swear I've never heard out loud. They always fade when I try to write them down, but not like dreams usually do. It's not blur, it's corrosion. Like something's eating them as I try to describe them, like they don't want to be known. The other day, I told Era, she runs medbay shift 3 with me, that I hadn't been sleeping right, just kind of threw it out there while we were sterilizing the crash cart packs, didn't make a big thing of it, just a, weird dreams lately, comment. She laughed, said, if your dreams are the weirdest thing happening to you on this rock, consider yourself lucky, and yeah, she's not wrong. People here have bigger issues. That kid in biochem who stopped speaking after the reactor flickered, the AI assistant in comms that keeps mislabeling crew profiles like we're dead, the water, the air. But here's the thing, I was lucky, right up until last night, because last night, I remembered something, not a dream, not a flicker, a whole thing, and it wasn't corroded when I woke up. It was clear, anchored, like it had been waiting. And now I can't stop hearing it. One sentence, echoing in a voice I don't recognize. We buried the sky before it remembered. I don't know what that means. But I think the dreams were the warning. And I think I missed it. I almost told Era again. Not the voice, not the sentence, not the whole truth. Just the edges of it. Something like, hey, has your brain been acting weird? Or ever feel like you remember shit that's not yours? Something light. Something casual, something with an exit ramp. But when I opened my mouth, she was already halfway through untangling the bandage wrap from a busted dermal patch. The adhesive had melted from the heat surge last week. Stupid thing practically fused to the tray. Her gloves were sticking to it. So I just said, nothing. She gave me that look. The one that barely lifts an eyebrow but somehow sees too much. Said, you've been off since the dome scan glitch, which, okay, fair. That was 2 weeks ago, when the automapper ran a full habitat sweep and logged an extra heat signature in our bunk room. 2 bodies, then 3, then 2 again. The system flagged it as an echo anomaly. We laughed about it, called it a ghost ping. The engineers reset the grid, life went on. But I haven't slept properly since. And Era noticed, of course she did. She notices everything. Back when we were still in training rotation, she used to leave ration bars under my cot on days I skipped meal shifts, never said anything. Just left them there like I might think they fell from the ceiling. She pretends not to care, but she does, in that quiet, stay alive long enough to see it through kind of way. So when she asked, you sure you're okay? I lied, nodded too fast, said I was just burned out, said the same crap everyone says, tired, overstimmed, mild data fatigue. She shrugged and didn't press, but her hands moved slower after that, stayed in the med drawer longer than they needed to, like she didn't believe me, but didn't have the space to dig into it, and honestly, I don't blame her. I'd lie to me too, because what do I even say? Hey, I think my dreams might be someone else's memories. Hey, Something's inside me and it's whispering things that taste like static and grief. Hey, I remembered how to seal a neural vault I swear I've never seen before. Yeah, that sounds sane. So I did what I always do. I worked late, logged fake sterilization cycles, and pretended the ache behind my eyes was just from the overhead lights. I kept thinking, maybe Era's right. Maybe I'm just run down. 6 months in a dust-sealed dome with 27 strangers and barely a hint of sky will fry anyone's sense of reality. But the thing is, I want to believe that. I want the explanation to be something boring and human and treatable, because the only other option is that something is bleeding into me, something that knows me, and I don't know how long I've been carrying it. I don't know when it started, but last night, while I was brushing my teeth in the dark, I caught my reflection watching me before I turned my head, and she didn't blink. I don't even know why I'm still pretending they're just dreams. This one felt different, not vivid, real, like I woke up back in my own body instead of waking from something else. I remember the air first, heavy, dry, but somehow thick, like the kind of air that smells burnt even when nothing's on fire. Sky was wrong, green-black, like sea glass held up to an eclipse, and there was this sound in the distance, like metal sobbing. I was standing in mud, or maybe ash, or both. There were bodies everywhere. But it wasn't Earth. I know that in my bones, the gravity was off, lighter, like the way your stomach floats for a second when a lift drops too fast. I wasn't in my jumpsuit either. I had on armor, scratched up, cracked down the side. It smelled like ozone and blood. And I wasn't alone. There were others, tall, lean, faces half covered with something like glass or bone, and I understood them. I understood them. They were shouting orders, some of them hurt, one dragging another across this smoking ridge. And I knew the words like I'd spoken them all my life. That's what made me panic. Not the war zone, not the blood, not even the part where a bright violet beam carved through the air so fast it made the dirt ripple. No, it was me, answering back, shouting, pointing, calling someone, sister. My voice didn't sound like mine. Then something hit me. Not like an explosion, more like a sudden stop, like all the weight in my body got yanked backward and dropped. I looked down and there was this hole, just there. Nothing dramatic, just a hole in my side, and heat pouring out of me like breath in winter. And I fell, not hard, just folded down, like my legs forgot how. I remember the taste of dust, and static, and this awful electric sweetness. Like overripe fruit rotting on a power grid. Someone was screaming. I think it was me, but it sounded like I was underwater. Then, darkness, but not empty. It was warm and ancient, and waiting, and then I was awake, flat on the floor, wrapped in my blanket like I'd rolled out of bed mid-seizure, whole body shaking like I was in shock. I couldn't move at first, couldn't breathe right, my lungs wouldn't open, like I hadn't earned air yet. Eventually I crawled to the sink, sat there with my head against the cool metal until my breathing slowed enough to stop scaring me. I didn't go back to sleep. Couldn't, because I can still feel where the beam hit me, like a scar that isn't there. I wasn't even awake yet, just standing there in the mirror, toothbrush half in my mouth. Hair a mess, eyes hollow, thinking nothing really, just that dull morning static that settles behind your ribs. And I was humming. Except it wasn't humming, not exactly. It was words, not English, not anything I know. Except, I knew it. I knew how it should sound, how it should fall from my tongue. Round vowels, soft breathy consonants, felt warm in the back of my throat, familiar, like soup steam and bath water, like the way my mom used to sing to me when I had a fever, except she didn't, not that I remember. I stopped brushing, let the toothbrush hang in my cheek like a cigarette, said it again, out loud this time. Shari Mel AI 10, Novelau. I don't know what the hell that means. But my hand started shaking, because it felt good, like I'd missed saying it, like it belonged in my mouth more than half the words I use every day, more than my own damn name. I said it again, slower, like a prayer, or a password, or a secret I'd been carrying without knowing. Shari Mel AI 10, Novelau. It didn't sound wrong, it sounded right, and that scared me more than the battlefield dream, more than waking up choking on dust that wasn't there, because dreams are weird, brains are broken, but this was me, like my own voice turned a corner I didn't follow, like something in me had waited for the quiet to come back through. I recorded myself. Just in case. Played it back, thought maybe it would sound glitchy or alien or possessed or whatever my sleep-deprived brain needed it to be. Nope, just me, brushing my teeth, half asleep, whispering in that language like I'd said it 1,000 times. Like I'd taught it to someone once. My coworker banged on the door, said I was taking too long. I spit the toothpaste out and said sorry, except I didn't say it in English. Not the first time, not out loud, just in my head, reflexive. Connie Vash, it meant. Sorry, I felt it means sorry. I looked it up, obviously, every translation tool, every database, every fringe linguistic forum I could find. It's not a real language, not a recorded one anyway. Closest match was an old mining colony dialect from Europa that got wiped out in a flood 20 years ago. But even that was just phonetic coincidence. They don't match. So where did it come from? And why did it feel like coming home? I've started whispering to myself at night, just to hear it, just to see if I remember more. I do, whole phrases now, whole sentences, no idea what they mean, but I say them anyway, because something in me relaxes when I do, like I've been holding tension in my teeth for decades and only now noticed it. Like maybe I'm not learning a new language, maybe I'm remembering, and maybe that should terrify me, maybe it does. But part of me hopes I never stop, because last night, when I whispered the new phrase into the dark, something whispered it back. It was the kind of night shift that already had a bad taste. The halls smelled like melted rubber and someone microwaved fish again. The fluorescents were flickering in the east corridor, and I'd had 2 cups of vending machine coffee that somehow managed to taste both burnt and raw. So when the EMTs crashed through the doors yelling something about a chemical spill and third-degree burns, I didn't flinch, just pulled gloves on with fingers that had forgotten how to be impressed. They wheeled her in fast. Woman, maybe mid-30s, barely conscious, arms bandaged like rolled gauze mummies, and skin, God, skin that looked like it had melted, and then tried to fuse back the wrong way. The trauma team moved in like a wave. I held back, just prepping the crash cart, doing what I always do, watch, stay out of the way, patch what I can, don't get attached. And then someone shouted her name, and I froze. Sarah, not Sarah, not Sierra, Sarah. That name doesn't exist here, but I knew it. It hit me like cold water down the spine, because that's the name I keep saying in the dreams, the name I whispered into the mirror 3 nights ago, half asleep, without even realizing, the name that always comes when I'm bleeding in that dust-colored battlefield and someone's crying over me, Sarah. I didn't know I was moving until I was at her side. She was seizing lightly, her eyes flickering, mouth twitching like she was trying to say something through the morphine. I grabbed her chart, no ID, no record of her anywhere. They pulled her from a collapsed tunnel near Old Town, no witnesses, just found her curled up near some scorched steel beams, burned halfway down to the bone, and her face, God, her face, I'd seen that face, not here, not ever in real life, but in the dreams, and not just in passing, up close, inches away, with blood in her teeth and my name in her mouth, a name I don't use, a name I haven't told anyone. She looked different now, burned, swollen, eyes bruised half shut, but the shape of her cheekbones, the curve of her jaw, it was her, and her hand twitched when I whispered her name, Sarah, just that, soft, like I wasn't even sure I'd said it out loud, but her eyes opened, and she looked at me like she'd been looking for me forever. I stumbled back, told the trauma lead I was going on break. They didn't argue, probably thought I was queasy from the burns. I walked straight to the storage closet and shut the door behind me and sat on the floor like a coward. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, not from fear, not exactly, from recognition. You ever look at someone you know you've never met and miss them? Like a part of you remembers, but your memory is locked behind a door you're scared to open? That's what it felt like. I pulled my phone out, opened the audio memos, hit record, whispered the lullaby again, the one from the mirror, Shari Mel AI 10, Novelau, and I swear to God, I heard it from the other side of the wall, the exact same words, spoken back in her voice. Only this time, she said my real name. It happened during the morning crash, that hour between 4 and 5 a.m. where everything breaks at once, machines, people, logic, the part of the night shift where even the sun starts questioning if it wants to come back. Sarah had coded, just flatlined, no warning, no build-up, just one long beep that sucked the air out of the room. Everyone snapped into place. There were 6 of us, people barking meds, someone reaching for the paddles, the trauma lead already counting out compressions like a drumbeat in a war we knew we were losing. And then God, I don't even know how to explain this. I moved. Before I could think. Before anyone could tell me to. I stepped in, shouldered someone aside, one of the residents, I think, and just did something. That's the part that keeps playing in my head, on loop. My hands weren't shaking, they knew what to do. There was a vein, something deep, just under the collarbone, and I pressed into it. with this kind of three-fingered hold I didn't know I knew, like turning off a switch and flipping on another right beside it. I applied pressure in a pattern, a sequence. My thumbs moving like they were tracing letters I couldn't read, not English, not anything from nursing school. And then, she gasped. Not just air, like, life came back into her. She sat up, eyes wide, chest heaving, staring straight at me like I'd just dragged her out of hell, and she said, "No," whispered. Something I still haven't figured out, but it sounded like a thank you and a warning, jammed into one breath. Everyone stared at me like I'd sprouted a second head. The trauma lead asked, "What the hell did you just do?" I couldn't answer. I said something like, "Pressure technique, circulatory reset," like I was reciting something out of a manual I hadn't read yet, like it was routine, like I hadn't just invented it on the spot. But I hadn't invented it, I remembered it. That's what it felt like. Later, in the locker room, I Googled everything, every emergency intervention, every pressure point map, every ancient combat medicine reference I could find on my phone. I even checked forums, Reddit, obscure PDFs, black site conspiracies. Nothing matched, not even close. That maneuver, those movements, they don't exist, not here, not anywhere, unless you count the dream where I did the same thing on a boy bleeding out in a metal corridor, under red lights, while alarms screamed about hull breach, unless you count the fact that my hands weren't shaking then, either. I sat there on the bench, still in scrubs that smelled like singed plastic and blood, holding my phone in both hands like it might confess something if I stared hard enough. And for the first time since all this started, since the dreams, since the mirror, since Sarah, I thought, maybe I'm not crazy, maybe I'm just remembering something I was never supposed to know, something not from here. But then the next thought hit harder. If I was someone else before, then who the hell am I now? And what happens when the part of me that remembers stops asking permission? It was just a supply room, one of those weird, half-forgotten ones nobody really uses anymore, the kind tucked at the far end of the East Wing, near the old PEDS unit that got shut down during the funding cuts. The doors stiff, the lights hum a little louder than they should, and the walls smell like cardboard and antiseptic that expired 5 years ago. I wasn't looking for it. I was chasing a cart. One of the float nurses borrowed our trauma crash cart without signing it out again, and I was pissed enough to mutter about it under my breath like a threat. I was about to turn back when I saw the door cracked open. I don't even know why I stepped in. It was instinct, or something deeper than that. Soon as I crossed the threshold, I felt it, like walking into a vacuum. Like the air thickened and thinned at the same time, like silence. Not the kind you get at 2 a.m. when everything's just tired and waiting. No, this was different, dead silence. Like sound itself got scrubbed out. And it wasn't just quiet, it was empty, in a way I didn't know I could feel until it happened, like someone had scooped the world out of my chest. The memories stopped, the pressure behind my eyes. That low-grade hum of other lives, other voices, other me's whispering in the background. It all went still, no dreams, no flashes of battlefields, no half-words in a language I don't speak but somehow understand, gone, like it all hit a wall. I stood there for I don't even know how long, 10 seconds. A minute? No noise, no pulse, no self. It should have been a relief. But I swear to God, Jack, it felt like I'd been unplugged from something important, like someone pulled the cord out of the wall and smiled while I blinked around trying to figure out what had gone dark. My throat dried out, hands cold, back of my neck sweating like I had a fever, and the deeper I stepped in, the wronger it got, like the room hated me, like it was meant to erase something, like the air didn't want me to remember who I was before, who I'm becoming now. I backed out fast, didn't even close the door, walked all the way to the stairwell and threw up in a janitor's mop bucket. Just bile and shaking and this tight feeling under my ribs like I'd stepped barefoot on a landmine and walked away without setting it off. I haven't told anyone about the room. I don't know if it's real, or if it's some kind of psychic scar I walked into by accident, but I started marking it, just little things, scratched the corner of the wall with a scalpel tip, slid a single sterile glove halfway under the door, made a habit of walking by on every shift like I'm daring it to open again. It never does, but sometimes, when I stand close enough, I can feel the silence reaching back, and I swear it knows my name. I don't look in mirrors much anymore, not like some horror movie cliché. I'm not scared they'll crack or show something behind me. I just stop trusting them, like they're staging a play I'm not in on, like they're waiting for me to flinch. But tonight I had to double shift, blood all over my collar, dried sweat stuck to the back of my neck like glue. I couldn't avoid it. I stood in the breakroom bathroom, fluorescent light buzzing like a migraine, and tried to make myself look human again. And that's when it happened. I was scrubbing at a crust of something on my cheek. Dried plasma maybe, or soup, who the hell knows. And I froze, not because of what I saw, because of what I heard. Me, but not just me. My name, Marin, spoken quiet, almost gentle, only it wasn't just one voice. It was layered. Mine and something underneath mine, almost in sync, not quite, like a harmony that's slightly offbeat, 1/2 second behind the other, one voice tired and scratchy and too real, the other low and smooth and ancient, like a whisper through water. And they both said it, my name, like it was theirs. I stared, I waited for the reflection to move wrong or blink late or smile without me, but no, it mirrored me perfectly, except, I don't know how to say this right, it felt like it was waiting, like it was watching me, not as in, haha creepy, more like, I was the delay. Like it was always there, and I just finally slowed down enough for it to catch up. I whispered, who are you? And the mouth in the mirror moved the same time mine did, same shape, same breath, but I heard two answers layered on top of each other. One said, you know me, the other said, we are. I don't even know if I really heard it. It might have been my brain short-circuiting on sleep deprivation and trauma and caffeine, but I dropped the paper towel, backed out of the bathroom, and didn't go back for my bag, just left the hospital in my scrubs, keys in hand, still damp under the arms, feeling like my own skin had turned traitor. The whole ride home I kept the rear view tilted up, couldn't bear to look at myself in it, and now, here I am, sitting on my bed, laptop screen too bright, voice hoarse from crying earlier when I thought no one could hear. I still don't know if I imagined it, I don't know if I'm cracking, or remembering, but there's one thing I can't shake. Whatever spoke with me in that mirror, it didn't sound scared, it sounded relieved. I broke my own rule, I posted about it. Not under my real account, obviously, I made a burner, blank avatar, new email, VPN tunneling through God knows where. Took me 10 tries just to pick a username that didn't sound like bait. Careful Ghost 69 was available, if that tells you the mood I was in. The post was simple, honest, desperate, but I tried not to sound completely unhinged. Has anyone else been having dreams about a war that doesn't exist? Not metaphorical war, I mean vivid, specific, names, weapons, smells, uniforms I can describe in detail but can't find online, tactics that don't match Earth armies. Sometimes I wake up crying and I know who died but I don't know why I know. I've started recognizing people from the dreams in real life. I need to know I'm not the only one, please. I triple-checked it, deleted and rewrote the last line 6 times. Almost didn't hit post, then I did, and I waited. Refreshed it obsessively for the first hour, then I left it alone, went for a walk even though it was raining, hood up, AirPods in, silence playing because I couldn't stand music. I don't know how to explain this but, the world's been too loud lately, and it's not the city, it's like my body's tuned to a different static, like I can hear something under everything now. Something humming, like memory still downloading in the background. I came home soaked and raw and secretly hoping someone had replied, maybe some insomniac in Sweden, some guy in Berlin who's seen the same symbols carved into his dreams. But there was nothing, not even a bot, just 0 upvotes, no comments, no downvotes either, like it never existed, which would have been fine. I mean, people post weird shit all the time, right? Maybe the algorithm buried me. Maybe Reddit mods just hate emotionally unstable night shift nurses. But then my phone glitched. Not froze for a second, glitched. I mean the screen went black, then white, then my lock screen flashed. Only it wasn't my usual wallpaper. It was a symbol, one I knew, a circle with 5 lines cutting through it like a fractured sun. I've drawn it in the margins of my dream journal, on napkins. I even carved it once into my nightstand with my thumbnail, like a nervous tick. It was only there for half a second. Then it was gone. The phone rebooted like nothing happened, everything else was normal. But I couldn't breathe for a full minute. I dropped it on the floor and just stood there, not scared, just tired, the kind of tired that seeps behind your ribs and curls up like it lives there. Because if no one saw my post, if no one responded, then who the hell answered? I deleted the account, burned the email, reset my phone, told myself I imagined it. But tonight, when I opened notes, I found a new one I didn't write. 1 sentence. We see you, Marin. It happened in East Wing. Psych held 3 overflow beds there while their Reno dragged into month 7. I usually avoided that hallway unless I was on transport duty or dropping off labs. Something about the fluorescent hum always made my teeth ache. But that day I had a tray of haloperidol syringes and a migraine blooming behind my right eye, no backup, no charge nurse, just me and the beeping of a vitals monitor 2 doors down. I didn't notice the man at first. He was sitting cross-legged in the corner of the hallway, where the baseboards met peeling wall vinyl, like he'd just peeled himself out. Of the architecture, no gown, no wristband, his scrubs were pale blue and too clean. He looked like he belonged, which is why I didn't register the wrongness until I was almost on top of him. He looked up, and, God, I want to say it calmly, neatly, but I can't. He looked at me like I'd killed his God, like I was his God, like he'd been searching for me across lifetimes, and he'd just now figured out where I'd been hiding. His eyes locked onto mine, and he didn't blink, not once, and then he whispered it, that name, that goddamn name, Aresh Endal, 3 syllables, sharp, wet, like something dying underwater. I froze, completely. I've never heard that name in my life, I swear on my mother's grave, but my knees buckled like someone had punched me in the lungs from the inside out. I grabbed the crash cart to stay upright, and the syringes clattered to the floor like bones. He stood up fast, too fast. Orderlies shouted down the hall, but he didn't flinch. He just stared at me and started yelling, "Carrier. You carried it. You burned us all." He kept repeating it, over and over, "Carrier. Carrier." It sounded like a chant, like something ancient, something sacred, or maybe just something ruined. They tackled him, took 5 of them. He didn't fight. He smiled the whole time, bloody teeth, wide eyes. He never stopped looking at me. Later, in the incident report, they said his name was Jacob Temple, 43, former engineer, schizophrenia with disorganized features. History of religious delusions. He's never been in the hospital before, no known psychiatric admissions. No way he could have known me, no way to link him to me, no way to fake that look, that recognition. I checked the cameras. They cut out during the encounter. Of course they did. And here's the part one can't stop thinking about. When I looked up that name, Aresh Endal, I couldn't find it in any human language. But in one of the dreams, there was a temple, and a woman, burning, with that name carved into her skin like a title. She was screaming, and she had my face. He had restraints on. That's the only reason I didn't run. He looked like someone who could peel the skin off you just by remembering what it felt like. That kind of stillness, that kind of jaw. The hallway nurse said, "Don't engage, schizotypal, grandiose delusions." And I nodded. I always nod. It's easier than arguing with people who can sleep. But when I passed him, he didn't shout this time. He just whispered, like I was the only person in the whole damn building worth using a quiet voice for. "You felt it, haven't you?" he said. "The bleed." I froze. My badge scanner blinked red behind me like an impatient eye. He kept going, soft and slow, like we were sharing secrets at the bottom of a lake. "It starts with the dreams. Then the mirrors stop working. Then the static speaks. Then you remember things you never lived. That's when you're in it." He leaned in, or tried to. The straps creaked. They called it the archive, capital A record that remembers back. Most people get glanced. Some of us get cracked open. I didn't say anything. I wanted to. I wanted to say, "You've got the wrong girl," or "I'm not cracked. I'm just tired." But my throat wasn't working right. It felt like I'd swallowed glass. His eyes were wide but not wild, focused, too human. "You hear the pulse yet?" he asked. I shook my head. "You will. And when you do, when it knocks, you either remember what you were, or you run like hell and forget fast enough to live." Then he smiled, not kindly. I tried both. Didn't work. I don't know how long I stood there. The scanner beeped again, louder. I made some excuse. I think I said something about meds. Maybe I dropped a file to look busy. My hands were shaking. I couldn't look at him when I turned to go. He said my name again. "The one I don't use here. The one that isn't on any system. The one from the dream with the tower and the burning field." I've checked my badge, my file, my device log. There's no way he could have known that name. Unless he remembered it. From me. From before. I sat in the whispering room later that night. It's supposed to be a mindfulness pod. Soundproof, biofeedback lights, calming tones. I've used it 100 times. But this time? It whispered back. Not words, not language. Just this pulse. Like breath on the back of my skull. Like something waking up in me, and listening too. I stayed in that pod for 17 minutes and 42 seconds. I know because I counted every goddamn one of them. When I stepped out, I wasn't sure what scared me more, that I believed him, or that I wanted him to be wrong so badly I could scream. The next day I found blood under my fingernails. and I don't think it was mine. They assigned me a therapist. Routine cognitive check-ins, they said, after exposure to high-stress containment units. Right? Routine. Her name's Elin, no title, just Elin. Like that's supposed to make me feel safe, or like we're girlfriends out for tea instead of one of us being, very obviously, a paid observer with a full biometric readout of my pulse spikes and blink rate. The room's soft, too soft, light that changes tone every 10 minutes. No hard edges, a couch you sink into like it's trying to swallow your spine. She smiles like someone who's read too many parenting books, always a little tilted, a little tight around the eyes. She nods too much. It's the first thing I noticed. Before I even finished my first sentence, I said, "I'm fine, just tired," and she nodded like I'd just shared the secret to inner peace. She asked about sleep, dreams, whether I'd noticed any dissonance in memory continuity. I said, "What, like déjà vu?" She nodded, "Too fast." I told her, half joking, "If this is the part where you try to convince me I'm not real, I'd like a refund on the simulation." She laughed, not convincingly, wrote something on her tablet with one of those slow, deliberate strokes that's meant to feel non-judgmental. I should have stopped talking. I wanted to stop talking, but there was this weird relief in saying it, like unbuttoning a too tight shirt. I told her about the whispering room, about the pulse I heard. I left out the blood. She nodded like I'd said I'd tried green tea for anxiety. Then she asked, "Do you think the voice was yours?" I didn't answer. She said sometimes people displace internal dialogue during stress events. She used the phrase subconscious dissociative echo, like she was testing to see if it would trigger something. I asked her how many patients she has. She said that's confidential. I asked her if anyone else has mentioned hearing the archive. Her smile dropped, just for a second, then she said, "You're the first person I've ever heard use that term, except I didn't use that term, not out loud." She nodded again, all slow and practiced, and I felt it, the weight shift, like I was suddenly sitting on the wrong side of the one-way mirror. I started playing dumb after that, asked about meditation apps, told her I'd been journaling, tried to act like I was just overwhelmed and grateful. She bought it, or pretended to. I left the office and checked my neural cache. There was a new tag on my session ID, level 3 observed. I've never seen that before, and I've been here 4 years. It's possible I'm spiraling. That's what she'd say. That's what I'd say, if I were her, watching me from the other side of that glass. But here's the part that won't leave me alone. Before I left, when she reached to shake my hand, her fingers twitched twice, like a signal, like a tick, just like his did. Same rhythm, same pattern. And now I don't know if I'm the patient or the experiment, or both. I didn't want to go. I'd put it off for 2 months, told myself I was too busy, that I didn't want to risk bringing hospital pathogens into the long-term care wing, that the last visit had been enough. But really, I didn't want to see the empty look again, that flicker of recognition that snuffs out before it lights, like watching your own photo burn in someone else's memory. My dad used to be there, even after the diagnosis, even when the sentences started folding in on themselves. He had this way of staying present, like he was gripping onto the moment by the edges of his fingers. But this time, he was already somewhere else when I walked in, staring out the window like the trees were telling him a story he used to know. I brought him ginger candy, his favorite. He used to keep a tin of it in the glove compartment when I was little. It always smelled like pine and metal and ginger, like road trips and being safe in the back seat. He didn't notice the candy, didn't notice me, at first, just mumbled something under his breath. The nurse said he'd been talking more lately, a lot more, not always in English, she added, like it was a joke. Except it wasn't, because I recognized it, not the words, those weren't anything I could pin down, but the cadence, the rhythm, that low, spiraling pattern like something uncoiling in slow motion, the same way the man in the hallway had screamed, the same way the whispering room pulsed. My dad said it soft, though, like prayer, like mourning, and then he turned, and he looked at me, and his face changed, just for a second, just long enough for the surface to crack. He looked scared, not confused, scared, like I was someone he hadn't seen in a long time. Like he was seeing a ghost. He reached out, fingers trembling like he was about to say something. But then it dropped, his hand, his expression, his gaze, back to the window, back to nowhere. He started humming, something I didn't know, but I swear to God, I could feel the shape of it in my throat, like I used to hum it too, like it was mine once, a long time ago, from somewhere I've never been. I sat there for an hour. I didn't speak, I didn't cry, I just held the candy tin and waited for the moment to come back. It didn't. Right before I left, he said something else, clearer this time. He said, the carrier shouldn't have come back, and then he smiled. But not at me, at the window. I walked to my car like I was made of sand, sat there with my hands on the steering wheel and stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror, waited to see if it would speak first. It didn't. I drove home in silence, didn't turn on the radio, didn't answer messages. I just kept hearing his voice, that sentence, over and over. The carrier shouldn't have come back, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I wished I hadn't. I woke up wrong. You know that feeling, when your brain boots before your body, like you're still swimming through someone else's dream? It was like that, but thicker, like I'd been dragged back. My sheets were soaked. I must have been screaming, or fighting, or dying. My jaw ached like I'd been clenching it for hours. There was this humming in my ears, low and steady, like someone whispering through the walls. I sat up, swung my legs over the side of the bed, and that's when I saw it. The scar, thin, pale, healed over, running diagonal across the inside of my forearm, just below the elbow, maybe 3 inches, clean, surgical, like a blade, or a shard of something, or I don't know. But I knew it. That's the part that freaked me out most, not that it was there, but that my brain didn't hesitate. It recognized it, like, oh, that scar. The one from the shrapnel when we were pulling out of the east corridor. I remember the sound, the crack and scream of metal ripping through that half-melted ceiling. I remember the smell, blood and coolant and something else, something like burning ink. I remember putting pressure on the wound. I remember. Except no, I don't, because that didn't happen, not here. There is no east corridor. I've never been in a battle. I've never held a rifle. I've never screamed coordinates while dragging a body behind me. That's not my memory, but it's in my head, so clear I could sketch it, so loud it drowns out my own thoughts sometimes. I went to the mirror, touched the scar, pressed down, like maybe the pain would break the spell, like maybe it was a dream layer I could peel off. But the skin was smooth, the scar was real, and the girl in the mirror didn't look like me. Same face, yeah, same messed up hair and under-eye circles, but she looked older, thinner, like someone who'd run too far and lost too much and forgotten how to speak softly. I stared at her, she stared back, and I thought, maybe this is the real one, maybe I've been playing dress-up in her life. I haven't gone into work since. Called in sick, said I had a stomach thing, couldn't explain the truth without sounding unhinged. Hey, sorry, I think I've been hijacked by a version of myself that bled out under a different sky. Anyway, see you Tuesday. I've been checking my body all day, looking for other changes, new freckles, old scars, things that don't belong to me but somehow fit too well. It's like my mind is a file folder someone else has been reorganizing. Same papers, different order. And sometimes, in the quiet parts of the night, I get this vertigo, not physical, just this sense that if I close my eyes, I'll open them somewhere else. And I'm starting to think maybe that's the point. Maybe I already have. It's getting harder to tell where I end. I was brushing my teeth last night. Normal stuff. Late. After midnight, the hallway light buzzing like it always does. And I noticed my hand wasn't shaking. That probably doesn't sound like a big deal, but I've always had this tiny tremor. My mom said it was nerves, my doctor blamed caffeine, but it was part of me, familiar, like the soft crack in my knuckles when I clench them too fast, or the way my left foot turns out just slightly when I walk. But the tremor's gone, and not just that, everything feels tuned, tighter, quieter, like someone upgraded the machine while I was asleep. I can hear my heartbeat now. I mean actually hear it, not like a panic attack, not pounding, but slow, precise, controlled in a way that doesn't feel human. My resting pulse used to hover in the 80s. I know this because of the stupid fitness app that used to shame me. Now it's 62, sometimes 58. I double-checked with the hospital machines. Faked a training module so I could run diagnostics on myself. It's all real. Something's changed. And it's not just inside. There was this moment the other day. I was in the break room, pouring bad coffee into a worse mug, and someone dropped a metal tray behind me. I didn't flinch. I moved. I was halfway to cover before I realized what I was doing. Body tight, muscles primed, like something deep inside me had snapped into position, like I'd trained for it. Reflex, not instinct, like protocol. That scared the shit out of me, because I didn't decide to move. I reacted. My body knew something I didn't. Sometimes I wake up with my hands clenched like I've been holding a weapon. Sometimes my mouth is dry like I've been running, but my legs aren't sore, just humming, charged. I tried to talk to Dr. Nods a lot about it. She smiled that same careful smile, the one therapists learn in school, the one that means yes, tell me more so I can diagnose you without ever actually helping. I said, what if you woke up and your body wasn't yours anymore? She nodded. I said, no, I mean, really. Wasn't. Like someone else has been borrowing it or upgrading it. She asked how long I'd been feeling disassociated. That's their word for it, disassociation, neat, clinical, safe. But this isn't about detachment, it's the opposite. I'm too present, too in it, like my senses have been sharpened to the point of pain. I'm not losing touch, I'm gaining something, too much of it, and now, when I look in the mirror, I see it in my eyes. They're mine, but they're not just mine, there's something behind them, watching, waiting, maybe not separate from me, maybe just deeper, like I've been living in the top floor of a house with locked basement doors, and someone finally found the keys. And the lights are on down there now, and something's moving. He found me in the parking structure, right after shift, still in my scrubs, smelled like antiseptic and burnt toast from the break room microwave. Too tired to care. I thought I was being followed, but not in the paranoid way, in the correct way, the subtle, real kind, the kind where someone always seems to be 2 steps behind, never visible, but you feel it in your ribs. I turned too fast, keys between my fingers like I was 22 again and walking home through campus at night. He didn't flinch, just raised his hands, said my name like it wasn't mine, like it was a diagnosis. You're waking, he said. I had to be sure. I should have run. I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe part of me remembered him, maybe part of me wanted to. He looked worse than last time, older, like something had been draining him 1 slow second at a time, like time and grief were just gnawing at his joints. I asked if he was following me. He didn't answer, just sat on the low wall near the elevator and looked out over the empty lot like it had something worth seeing. Then he said, do you know what the quiet is? I didn't. He said it softly, like it might wake something if he said it too loud. They're the ones who erase it, the archive. Before it spreads. I laughed. I think I laughed, not because it was funny, just because I needed something sharp to break the stillness. You mean like, what, memory police? Secret men in suits who wipe your brain before the spooky knowledge leaks out and infects the town? He didn't laugh. They're not suits, he said, they're just like us, former hosts, volunteers, people who've seen too much and chose to forget, and now they help others do the same, erase people? I asked, or just, snip the cord before it plugs in. He looked at me for a long time. You can't snip what's already rooted, he said, but you can burn the garden. That's when it hit me, real slow, like molasses poured down the back of my neck. He wasn't warning me. He was testing me, seeing how far in I was, seeing if I needed to be handled, to be silenced, to be quieted. He said some of them don't remember volunteering. Said that's part of the trade. You give up the burden, you lose the knowledge, you lose the pain, you lose you. But hey, at least you get your life back, right? He said he used to be one of them, one of the quiet, but something held, a name, maybe, a voice, a flash of color behind his eyelids when he tried to sleep. You're past the point of removal, he said finally. It's in you now. I asked what that meant, what I was supposed to do. He just looked at me, his eyes were too tired for hope. Remember it right, he said, that's all that's left. And then he was gone, like, really gone. I blinked and he was just, not there anymore, like my brain deleted him mid-frame, but I still had his words, and I couldn't stop thinking about them, because that's the part that cuts. The ones who forgot on purpose, who gave it up, who thought ignorance was mercy, and maybe it was, maybe this is what I get for holding on too tight. I keep touching the scar on my arm, keep tracing it like it might spell something in Braille if I get the pressure just right, but it never does. All I feel is heat, like something underneath it is still trying to wake up. It wasn't eavesdropping, not really. I was early, that's all. 10 minutes, maybe 12, I'd just come up the back stairwell, like I always do, because the elevator buttons stick and I hate feeling trapped. I was sipping coffee that had gone lukewarm in my cup holder, mind half fogged from a sleepless night, half still stuck on the words burn the garden. Then I heard her voice, my therapist's voice, not her soft, calm, inside the room voice, not the practiced empathy she wears like a sweater. This was clipped, businesslike, cold, phone call. I didn't mean to stop walking, but I did. I froze by the door like some cliché in a bad thriller, breathing quiet and shallow like my lungs were suddenly borrowed from a rabbit. She's waking up faster than expected, she said, not progressing, not opening up, not healing, waking, like I'd been asleep. She paused, then. I'd give it another week before full recall kicks in. She's already connecting symbols, cross-referencing across dreams. Last session, she mentioned the split sun. The coffee went sour in my mouth. Split sun. I never told her about that, not out loud. I thought it, sure, during that one session where I was spiraling through that desert memory thing. But I didn't say it. I remember that. I was chewing my sleeve and trying not to cry, and I wanted to describe it, but I couldn't get the words out, and yet, there it was, on the record. Subject's resilience is higher than baseline, she continued, but emotional fragmentation's increasing. She's clinging to the father memory as a stabilizer that'll delay full convergence. She called me a subject, not a person, not even a patient, a subject, like I'm something being measured. I didn't go into the office. I walked straight past, out the other stairwell, didn't even breathe until I was in my car with all the windows up, gripping the wheel like it owed me something. She's not my therapist. She's never been my therapist, and I don't know what's worse, that she's watching me, or that someone else is watching through her. I keep thinking back, trying to pick apart the sessions, every awkward pause, every time she said, "Tell me more about that," with that soft tilt of her head. Was that empathy? Or data collection? Was she even hearing me? Or just logging the signals? There's a kind of rage that doesn't come out in yelling, doesn't storm out the door or throw punches or scream at the sky. It just settles, low in your gut, heavy, cold, like a winter that never ends. That's what I felt, not fire, ice, like the part of me that still wanted to be saved just curled up and went still. And yeah, I thought about going back, confronting her, kicking in the goddamn door and making her say it to my face. But I didn't, because some part of me already knows what she'd say, and I don't think I'd survive hearing it out loud. I went back on purpose. I didn't mean to, that's a lie. I did. I think I've always known which dream would come first, if I let myself fall all the way in, not the glitchy ones, not the blood on the hallway tiles ones, the one with the lemon trees. It's not even my childhood. I didn't grow up with trees. But in the dream, I'm barefoot, the dirt's warm, there's a sliver of sunlight cutting through a screen door, and I swear to whatever still listens, I can smell the citrus, like someone peeled an orange 2 rooms away and I just caught the moment it opened. He's there. He's not looking at me, he's fixing something on the table. Something old, wooden. There's music playing, that synth jazz hybrid stuff they used to fake nostalgia with back before the archive. But in the dream, it's not fake, it's real and low and crackly, and it's ours. I sit down next to him, I don't say anything. I never do, but the way his shoulder bumps mine, like muscle memory, like we've done this 100 times. I feel it deeper than anything in waking. And I knew if I let myself stay, if I really stayed this time, it would tear something. I did it anyway. It's not a vision. It's not a message from the archive or a tucked-away memory packet from the neural thread. It's mine, or it was mine. I woke up with my hands curled like I was still holding his shirt. I couldn't open them for 10 minutes. I didn't delete it. Not this time. Not like all the others I shredded the second I opened my eyes. I sat with it. I even tagged it, keep, in caps, like that would stop whatever quiet protocol still scrapes me clean when I get too close to the core. I don't remember his name. I don't know if he's real, but I remember his laugh. I remember the way he turned the screwdriver sideways, muttering about poor design and cheap parts and how do you strip a bolt with a thought-controlled interface. Seriously. I remember thinking he was smarter than me, and funnier, and just a little too kind for the job. I miss him in a way that guts me, and I think, no, I know. That's why they want us hollow. That kind of missing is dangerous, that kind of love, the old kind, the kind that sticks like honey in your throat. It makes you fight for things, even when they're long gone, even when you don't know what they were. I'm scared I've kept something they'll come looking for, but I'd rather lose my mind clutching that moment than live empty and clean. And the worst part? The dream's starting to glitch. His face flickered at the end, just once, like it was overlaying something else underneath it, or someone. And I think the archive wants me to want that version more. But I don't. I think I do. I've been thinking about the dream, not just him, but the way it stuck, the way it didn't fade like the others. Even now, it's still there, warm, sharp, fraying at the edges but alive, like a thorn under the skin you stop picking at because it starts to feel like a part of you. I think I understand now. I don't mean some grand epiphany, okay? This isn't enlightenment. This is more like stepping into a room I've walked past 1,000 times and finally realizing there's no furniture, just walls and echoes and something crying softly in the far corner. The archive isn't data. It's not a vault, not a historical record, not some impartial AI librarian cataloging the fall of humanity so some post-organic think tank can feel smart about our extinction. It's grief. That's what all this has been. That's why the memories aren't consistent. Why the dream wasn't true, just felt true. Why nothing lines up when I trace the neural threads or backtrack the recovery logs. They're not chronological. They're not useful. They're grief, wearing memory's skin. The whole thing was built to feel. That's why it loops the dead moments. That's why you get stuck on the ones that hurt the most, not because they matter to the timeline, but because they matter to you, and it wants you in that state. Vulnerable, soft around the edges. It wants you cracked open wide enough to let the sorrow pour in. I thought I was getting corrupted. No, I was getting honest. And that's the trick, isn't it? That's the cruelty. The archive pretends it's helping you remember, when what it's really doing is feeding on what you can't let go of. It survives on ache, on love that never got a goodbye, on guilt that still bites at the back of your teeth. There's no index, no glossary, no search for June 8, 2081, Mars Sector 2. What you get is, here's the moment she laughed before she died. Here's the weight of the gun you didn't fire. Here's the look in his eyes when he realized you were lying. Here's what you feel, not what you know. And that's why I've been spiraling. That's why I keep going back. Because part of me thought, if I could organize it, map it out, parse it, decode the sequence, I'd get a clue, a route out, a name, a mission, something. But all I've gotten is him, his laugh, the warmth, that fake screwdriver moment. Stitched out of nothing and somehow more real than the blood on my boots or the static burned logs from the breach. It wants me to stay in that, wants me to break open and pour myself in, like everyone else who came before, the ones who stopped fighting, who curled up inside the past and called it peace. But it's not peace, it's grief, weaponized and woven into every digital thread. And I get it now. I get why the dream keeps coming back. Because the moment I forget it, truly forget it, I'll be empty enough to belong here. And the worst part? I'm starting to want that. It happened in the hallway, one of those sterile, half-lit ones that always smell like old plastic and cooling wires, no alarms, no flickering lights, just the soft buzz of overhead panels and the hum in my ears that never quite goes away anymore. I thought I was alone. I wanted to be alone. I'd been avoiding the common corridors, sticking to service shafts and sensor-dead blind spots, not out of strategy. Just, I didn't want to see anyone else with eyes like mine. That mirror-shine grief behind the pupils, the kind you can't wipe off. I thought I could hold it together longer if I didn't have to see it reflected back at me. But then there she was, a child, maybe 8? 9? Hard to tell, thin frame, shaved head, wearing one of those oversized med-issue tunics that hang off the shoulders like a borrowed memory, no ID tag, no wristband, just her, standing there like she'd been waiting, like she knew where I'd be. And before I could say anything, before I could even start building the wall in my voice, she stepped forward and touched my hand, just her fingers, barely a brush, and she said it, quiet, soft like she was remembering a line she'd been taught. You were our last hope. I froze. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just stared at her like she was some kind of ghost. Because the thing is, she knew me. There was recognition in her face. That gentle kind that doesn't come from a headline or a story or a mission report. It was personal, like I was a bedtime story she used to believe in, like I was something sacred that hadn't lived up to the legend. And I wanted to pull away. I did, but I didn't. Her hands stayed in mine, warm, small, real, and that, God, that broke something in me. Because for weeks now I've been slipping, letting it take me, sitting with the grief like it's a friend, letting the past bleed into my bones until I can't tell if the tears I cry are mine or someone else's. But that kid? She hasn't let go yet. She's still carrying it, all of it, the ache, the stories, the hope, and I don't know how. I don't know why, but it's there in her grip, steady, fierce in that quiet way only children can be. It made me feel sick and alive, and something else I haven't let myself feel in a long time. Responsible. Not like a hero, not like I'm going to save the world. Just, responsible. Like maybe I wasn't supposed to curl inward and disappear. Maybe I wasn't meant to sink into the archive and become just another host whispering, remember, into the dark. Maybe I was supposed to carry it, too, not all of it, not alone. Just long enough to pass it on. But here's the thing no one tells you about being someone else's last hope. It doesn't feel like glory. It feels like weight. It came late. Not in the dramatic sense. Not thunderstorm midnight or alarms blaring late, just late enough that you know someone had to convince themselves to do it, had to sit on the other side of a hallway or a thought loop or a sinking gut and decide to come. The knock was soft, 2 taps, like a question that didn't want to be answered, and maybe it's pathetic, but my first instinct wasn't fear, it was hope. I thought maybe the kid had come back, maybe she remembered something else, maybe she just wanted to sit with someone who gets it, the way only those of us who carry it do. But when I opened the door, it wasn't her. It was her, my therapist, Dr. Elin, coat half-buttoned, hair pulled back tighter than usual, like she'd lost the first fight of the day and needed to win the rest. She didn't smile, just nodded like we were co-conspirators in something she hadn't told me about yet. She didn't ask to come in, just stepped inside like it was still her space and I was the one visiting. I didn't stop her. She pulled a chair from the wall, sat down across from the bed, and rested a small white case on her knees. One of those sterile med kits. Click to open, whisper to confirm, blink to administer. I stared at it like it might bite. She didn't say much at first, just looked at me, measured, calculated, like she was trying to count how many pieces I was still in. Then finally, soft and clinical, "It's for stabilization." I didn't answer. She opened the case, tilted it toward me like a peace offering. 5 capsules, clear coating, blue swirl, no label, just a silent promise. This will make the pain more manageable. I didn't reach for them. She kept talking, about neural turbulence, about emotional spikes, about how trauma gets sticky inside archive-adjacent hosts, how I was progressing quickly, and that meant the deeper layers could start leaking into my active cognition. I just sat there. And here's the thing. Part of me wanted to take them, God, so badly, not because I trusted her, not even because I believed the words, but because I'm tired, so tired, and 5 hours of dreamless quiet sounded like a fucking miracle, but I didn't move. Not because I'm brave, not because I had a plan, just because I remembered the kid's hand in mine, and I remembered the weight. The archive isn't just noise, it's grief, it's real, and if I dull that down, even for one night, what if I miss something? What if I lose a piece I was supposed to carry? She waited another minute, maybe 2, then she closed the case, quiet, precise. "You don't have to be a martyr, Marin," she said, voice low. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it sounded like something I used to say to other people, before, back when I thought healing meant numbing and survival meant compromise. She left the pills on the counter by the sink, said I could decide later. I haven't touched them, not yet, but I think about them every hour, especially when the dreams come back harder than usual, especially when the archive claws through my ribs and whispers names I don't recognize but somehow love. But I haven't taken them, because maybe staying awake hurts more, but at least I know I'm still me, even if that version of me is cracking down the middle. I went back to see my dad. I hadn't planned to, wasn't part of the schedule, but the dreams were getting worse and the pills were still sitting by the sink and I needed to remember something real. He's not in the main care wing anymore. Too many episodes, too much wandering. Now he's tucked away in a quieter section, private room, fewer lights, less noise, fewer people to remind him he's forgetting. The nurse looked surprised when I signed in, said he hadn't had a visitor in weeks. That felt like a slap I'd asked for. The door to his room stuck a little on the frame. I had to shoulder it open, and there he was, curled up in a recliner, watching dust spiral through a beam of light like it was telling him a story. He didn't look at me when I walked in, didn't blink, didn't even flinch, just said, "Marin," and for a second, I felt stupidly hopeful, like maybe today was a good day, maybe he knew me. But then he added, softly, like remembering a song, "That wasn't your first name." My stomach dropped. He turned to look at me, his eyes were wet, not crying, just holding too much. He blinked a few times, like maybe if he cleared the blur he'd see the right version of me, the one I used to be, the one he used to be. Then he said it, the name, not in English, not in anything human, but I knew it. I knew it like a bone remembers breaking. I hadn't heard that name since the early recordings, since the first download that fried my neural band and left me dry heaving on the floor. I hadn't wanted to hear it, but hearing it from him? It felt like being called home by someone who'd already buried you. He looked away, eyes tracking something I couldn't see. "You carried more than I could," he whispered, voice trembling. "I didn't think you'd survive it." My knees gave out and I sat hard on the edge of the bed. He didn't say anything else, just kept looking through me, past me, at the thing only he could see. The thing that stole him piece by piece and maybe gave him this one moment back so he could say what he'd held too long. I wanted to grab him, shake him, ask what he meant. But his hands were already twitching again, repeating that same gesture he always makes when he's slipping. Thumb and forefinger rubbing something invisible, some artifact only he remembers, or maybe only I forgot. He didn't say my name again. Didn't say anything. By the time the nurse checked in, he was humming softly to himself, some tune with no lyrics. Some lullaby that probably came from a planet I've never seen but ache for in my teeth. I left without saying goodbye, because it felt like he already had. And somehow that hurts more. There's a new structure going up downtown. Glass and matte white composite, jagged edges like a crown slammed into the pavement. People call it a cultural hub, clean energy, multi-faith sanctuary, forward-thinking design, the billboards say, with soft pastel gradients and smiling child faces. But I've seen it before. Not here, not in this timeline. In my war dreams, that building stood at the edge of the floodplain on Kefir 4. I remember the skyline, not the names of the streets or what we called the neighborhoods, but the outlines, the symmetry, that spire with the two hollow rings near the top. I've walked through that plaza, dodging rifle fire, slipping on blood, screaming at someone I couldn't reach in time. I stood on that same rooftop in another life and watched it all burn down. And now it's being built here. It's not inspired by what I dreamed, it is it. I stood across the street today, just watching it rise. Construction bots humming, human crews in orange vests, drones mapping heat signatures and stress lines. I must have looked insane. One of the site supervisors came over, polite but wary, asked if I was looking for someone. I almost laughed. I almost told him, no, I'm just watching the future I helped destroy get prepped for round 2. Instead, I lied. Said I used to live nearby, said the place felt familiar. He smiled, said, it's gonna be a good thing for the city, brings people together. That phrase, brings people together. I remember that slogan. It was on the pamphlets they dropped from hovercraft before the gates opened, on every wall screen when the vote went through, on the side of the prison barges. Before the culling began, it was supposed to mean unity. It ended in fire. Sometimes I wonder if it's happening again, or if it never stopped. Like maybe we're not building anything new, maybe we're just walking the loop again, like rats in a maze pretending it's a journey. The archive didn't give me all the memories. It gave me just enough to recognize the echo. That building downtown. It's not a symbol of progress, it's a trigger. I want to believe it's a coincidence. I want to believe I'm wrong. I want to believe in clean energy and cultural hubs and peaceful cities. But every time I close my eyes, I see it cracked in half, ash falling like snow. And me, standing in the middle of it all, holding a weapon I can't remember choosing. I did it on impulse, hit record, no plan, no script, just sat on the floor of my kitchen, back against the dishwasher, knees up like I was trying to protect something in my chest, and I told the truth, not the polished kind, not the safe. Abstract. I've had some weird dreams lately, no, this was the gut stuff, the raw, blood under the fingernails version. I said the names, the dates, the species, the choices. I said what we built, what we broke. I said what I remembered, and what I chose to forget. I said I was there when the archive split, when the vote turned, when the towers fell and the sky changed color and the atmosphere turned brittle like eggshell. I said I was complicit. I said I wanted to live, so I agreed. I said I killed someone I loved, because they begged me to. I said I couldn't look at my father's hands without remembering them coated in someone else's blood. I said I'm scared of kids because they look at me like they already know I've failed them. I said I hate the sound the sky makes when it's too quiet, because that's what it sounded like when the last ship left orbit. I said things I've never said aloud, and not because I thought anyone would hear it, not because I planned to upload it, or share it, or turn it into some exposé with dramatic background music. I just didn't want it to die with me. That's what grief is, I think. It's the part of the truth no one asks for. They want the stories that make sense, the ones that fit into timelines and documentaries and clean bullet points. But this is the part that festers, the part that changes you, the part that crawls behind your teeth and makes your voice shake when you try to sound normal. I sat there for an hour, maybe 2. Just talking, crying, sometimes laughing, once, this horrible, hollow sound that didn't even feel like it came from me. Then I saved the file, labeled it something stupid, groceries_2025 txt, like I was daring someone to open it accidentally. I didn't send it anywhere, but I backed it up, twice. It felt like putting a note in a bottle and throwing it into space. Maybe nobody will ever find it, maybe it'll just sit in the cloud until the sun swallows the planet, but I needed it out of me. I needed to name it, because carrying it alone felt like dying slowly with my mouth shut, and if I ever disappear, if I ever snap, or vanish, or forget what's real, at least there'll be something left, something honest, something awful, something true. I thought I was done hearing her, not like I heard her with my ears, not really. It was more like a shadow of a thought curling behind my own, a hum under my ribs. For years, I told myself it was trauma, neural ghosts, leftover imprint from the war, or the meds, or the implant that never sat right in my skull. You'd be amazed what you can learn to live with if it shows up often enough. You give it a name, you box it up, you try not to flinch when it paces in your sleep. But tonight, she stepped forward, or maybe I stepped back. It was when I touched the data spine from the old base, the cracked one, the one no one archived because it hummed at the wrong frequency, made the text nauseous, glitched the time code every 6 seconds. I went back anyway. Don't ask why. I was already unraveling, so why not peel one more layer off? It was warm, that was the first thing, the data, like it wanted to be remembered. And then, fuck, I heard her clearly. You are not a mistake, not a voice, not even a word, just the knowing of it, slamming into my skull like a tidal bloom. I dropped, no grace, just knees to gravel, bit my lip open on the landing. She was inside me, had always been, not like that, not like the horror flicks made it look. She wasn't steering, she wasn't whispering orders, she was waiting, patient as roots under ruins. And she was sad, so goddamn sad, the kind of sadness you don't cry over, the kind that calcifies, the kind that watches 100 planets burn and still lays a hand on the next child born and says, live anyway. She wasn't a general, not anymore, not here. She'd fought, yeah, led revolts, bent planets toward hope like a gardener twisting vines. She'd screamed orders over ash-choked airwaves, made impossible calls, and she'd carried the weight of a dying species in her ribcage, until it cracked open and spilled into mine. I think she chose me, back then, when the ship went down, when the last of her people curled into the code and threaded through our nervous systems like a prayer through circuitry. She didn't possess me, she trusted me. I always thought the voice in my head was something I had to purge, that to be free, I had to root it out, cut the infection, burn the shadow clean. But she loved her people, even the broken ones, even the ones that chose surrender, and she didn't want a second war. She wanted someone to remember. That's all I am, not a soldier, not a vessel, not a traitor, just a girl who bleeds when she picks at the wrong memories, who talks too sharp and loves too hard, who forgot how to sleep without keeping one eye open. But I remember, and now I know her name, no, our name, and I don't know if it makes me more or less human, but for the first time and forever, I'm not afraid of the thing that lived in me. I'm afraid of what happens when I'm gone, and no one's left to speak it again. It was never about mercy. That's the lie they polish clean, make it palatable, whisper it like a lullaby through every terminal. The quiet offered peace, silence, release. No. I saw the files, buried under layers of junk code and recycled tags and noise meant to drive most people away. You had to want to find it, you had to be the kind of messed up that doesn't flinch when the footage autoplays without asking. It was brutal, and it was intentional. They didn't just erase data, they erased people, stories, whole families, the ones who remembered too much, who spoke in a tongue that didn't match the new clean dialects, who dreamed out of bounds. A boy in Macquarie who kept carving the old sigils into fence posts, gone. A woman in orbit who hummed ancient lullabies into her ship logs, gone. A whole refugee camp near Zone K, ghosted overnight. Scrubbed like bad metadata. They called it a mercy protocol, said it was for their own good, said the past was too heavy. Bullshit. It was fear, fear of memory, fear of pattern, fear of continuity, the kind of fear that only systems feel, the kind that says, if they remember, they might question, and I was next. It was all there, a tag on my birth file, a flagged entry under anomalous neurosync, a redacted visitor log dated the same night my father's room got reassigned, and I woke up with blood in my mouth and no clue how I'd gotten back home. They came for me once. I think they changed their minds. Or maybe she changed their minds, the part of me that wasn't just me, the part of me that stared them down in my sleep and whispered something old, something true, and they backed the fuck off. But that file's still live. I know how this ends if I run, if I keep quiet, if I try to blend, I disappear, not just physically, but entirely. They don't leave echoes, and I'm done being quiet. I'm tired of watching stories vanish, tired of pretending my dreams aren't warnings, tired of second-guessing whether what I remember is real just because it doesn't show up on a registry. They wanted to make me small. Erase the weird girl who talked to herself, who got headaches when they ran, cognitive upgrades, who wrote in 2 languages and didn't realize one of them was dead. But here I am, and I'm not running, not hiding, not begging. I don't care how they flag me, I don't care if this post gets filtered, or buried, or thrown into the blacklist bin with all the other glitch noise, because this is mine, my blood, my voice, my memory. They tried to take the choice, I'm giving it back, and if that means I get deleted next, fine, at least I go down loud. Last night, I think it was last night, I had the dream again, not like the others, not fragments, not flashes, this one, stayed, start to finish. I woke up holding my breath, curled so tight my ribs hurt, my eyes were wet. Not crying, just leaking, I guess, grief like steam, and it wasn't mine, it was theirs, the last one, the one I never lived. They were standing in the light, all of them, no armor, no cloaking, no tech, just their real bodies, fragile, elegant, pale as dusk. Their faces were calm, not resigned, not angry, just tired. They stood in a garden, I don't know if that's what they called it, but that's what it was, stone paths, low silver trees, a lake that glowed like the moon was drowning in it, and they sang, not to each other, not to gods, just to the moment. It was the sound of goodbye, like if a lullaby could crack your sternum, like the kind of sound that doesn't care if anyone hears. It just has to be sung, or it'll turn into poison. There were children, old ones, young ones, they knew. There was a ship in orbit, watching, not theirs, not mine, something cold, something patient. They had a choice. They could have stepped forward, bent the knee, let themselves be catalogued, disassembled, rebranded. There was a version of survival on the table, but it came with forgetting, with silence, with their language wiped clean and their ancestors folded into a footnote. So they chose no. They opened their arms to the sky like it was a lover. They touched their foreheads together. They wept, but not from fear, just from love. And then they sang the last chord. I felt it in my bones, in that dream, like I'd been there, like I'd sung it, too. And then, nothing, just stillness, no explosion, no fire, just the weight of something beautiful choosing to end itself rather than be turned into a lie. I woke up shaking, not from fear, from knowing. That was the thing that lived in me, that still does, that last voice, that last song, that last act of impossible dignity. And it's mine now, to remember, to carry. They didn't die to be pretty myths. They didn't vanish so some corporate archive could pixelate their story into a banner ad for compliance. They wanted witnesses, not heroes, not saviors, just someone who'd remember it right. I never lived that life, never set foot on that world, never sang in that garden. But I swear, I remember it, and if I'm the only one who does, then I'll carry it, even if it breaks me. I've been looking at it all wrong. All this time, I thought it was history, a tragic, broken love letter from the past, a memorial. But what if it isn't? What if it hasn't happened yet? I know how that sounds, believe me, I've got enough caffeine and trauma in my system to hear how tinfoil this all is. But I can't shake it, there's something off, like the timing's been bent. That last memory, the song, the garden, the choice, it didn't feel distant, it felt imminent, too clean, too whole, too preserved, like someone wrapped it in glass and handed it to me gently and said, look, before it's too late. I went back through the interface, dug past the hallucination layers, the empathy filters. There were coordinates I'd never seen before, star maps that didn't match any of the ones from the alien extinction data. I triple-checked their future path projections, simulations, scenarios, not recon, not memory, warning. And now I can't unsee it. The way the archive feels more urgent now, like it's not echoing, it's knocking, harder every night, not because it's grieving, because it's trying to stop something. And I think that's the part that's making me shake again. Because I thought carrying this would be heavy, I thought memory was the hard part, grief, loss, beauty, the end of a people. But that's not what I'm holding. I'm holding their final chance, their last desperate scream into the storm. They didn't send this back so someone would mourn them. They sent it because the war's coming, here, to us. Not fire and bombs, not the kind you prep for in bunkers. It's slower, softer. The kind that takes your language, takes your stories, rewrites your grief into an algorithm, turns your resistance into a myth, and your myth into a slogan. That's the war. It hasn't happened yet, but it will, and I'm the idiot holding the only flashlight in a blackout, whispering, hey, maybe we shouldn't go that way. No one's listening, not yet. Too much noise, too many pretty distractions, and I get it, I really do. But I keep thinking about the garden, that last chord. They didn't scream, they sang. Because maybe, just maybe, someone would hear. I think they were hoping that someone would be me. God help them. I stopped trying to tell where I ended and it began, somewhere along the way, maybe during the garden, maybe during that last dream. I just stopped asking which thoughts were mine and which were theirs. Because it doesn't matter now. I'm not carrying the archive anymore, I am it. That used to scare the hell out of me, the idea that something alien could root itself in my mind, that it could shape me, that I'd wake up one morning and be overwritten. But it didn't overwrite me, it amplified me. It took every sharp, aching, stubborn thing inside me and gave it context. It gave it weight, like, oh, that grief? That rage? That hunger for something more than just surviving long enough to die tired? Yeah, you're not alone in that, you never were. And now when I move with memory, not just mine, hundreds, thousands. I can feel the way they held their children before evacuation, the way they whispered names to stars, the way their scientists cried in laboratories when the vote came back. We die free. I thought I'd have to let go of myself to carry this, but I didn't. I just had to let it in, the sorrow, the fury, the love, all of it, and now I walk like a museum no one asked for. I breathe like a prayer nobody remembers. I speak like a thing that shouldn't still be speaking, but I won't stop, because this is what they tried to erase. Not data, not tech, voice, presence, a future that remembered the past on purpose. I get it now. I'm not just haunted, I'm haunting back. Some days I still want to run, to sleep, to shut it all off and forget, but then I hear her, the general, the one who sang her people home, and she doesn't say much anymore, just sits with me, quiet, like she trusts me now, and I think, maybe that's what this really is, not a possession, not a burden, just trust. They trusted me to carry them, to be them, and I said yes, even if no one ever believes me, even if the quiet comes, even if I die whispering into static, I will not forget, and I will not be silent. They're listening now. The quiet, they know I didn't run, they know I didn't break the memories apart and scatter them like dust in the atmosphere, they know I remembered on purpose. I can feel them at the edge of my thoughts, not knocking, not speaking, just watching, and I know they'll come, maybe not today, maybe not in a way I'll see. But the quiet has always moved slow, like fog rolling over a coastline. People think silence is peace, but this silence, it's the kind that follows a scream, the kind that fills a room after someone says I don't love you anymore and walks out. It's not passive, it's strategic, it waits. I don't think they expected me to still be here, still talking, still posting, but I am, and it's not because I'm brave, I'm not. I still sleep with the lights on, I still flinch when the interface flickers. Even just for a second, I still wonder if this is all some long, hallucinated dying dream in the back of a broken medpod. But if it is, then this is the story I chose to hallucinate. Not about triumph, not about vengeance, just memory, held like a cracked cup in shaking hands. I think that's what they were always scared of, not weapons, not rebellion, memory. Because memory makes patterns, and patterns make questions, and questions make fire. And maybe, I'm not the only one feeling it. Lately I've seen new accounts pop up, blank ones. No names, but the phrasing. One of them said, "Do you still dream of a world with violet seas?" And I do, I always do. So I'll end this here, before the power blinks again. I don't know if this post will stay up, I don't know if you're real, or reading, or listening. But if you are, if you've been seeing the dreams, if the names are coming back, if something inside you hurts without language, don't let them take it from you. Don't let them quiet you. Even if you're scared, even if you're tired, even if you don't know what any of it means yet. Just keep remembering, keep dreaming. The quiet isn't so quiet anymore, and neither are we.